With some more breaking news about these WNBA owners, they have put another $1 million proposal on the table. Guys, for this one here,
The WNBA just offered players a massive salary increase, and
The WNBA just offered their players 4 times their current salary, and the response was an immediate rejection. No negotiation, no counteroffer, just no. And now the entire league is about to implode. Drop a comment right now because this is about to get wild. Should WNBA players take a deal that would make them $500,000 on average, or are they justified walking away from generational wealth? I need to know where you stand, because what I'm about to tell you is going to divide this comment section in half. The WNBA Players Association just made a decision that has billionaire owners ready to burn the league to the ground. They looked at an offer that would transform struggling athletes into legitimate six-figure earners overnight and said, thanks, but no thanks. And the reason why might be the most insane thing you hear all week. We're talking about raising the minimum salary to $225,000. That's up from $60,000 just a few years ago. Not a cost of living adjustment, not a modest bump, a 300% increase that would change players' lives forever. The average salary jumps to $500,000, $500,000 to play basketball. The max goes to $1 million guaranteed, with opportunities to earn over $1.2 million through revenue sharing. These are numbers that seemed impossible when Caitlin Clark entered the league making $76,000 as a rookie. Any logical person would assume the players would sign immediately.
More on the WNBA-CBA negotiations. We have some new developments, and we welcome in our WNBA reporter, Alexa Philippou. Alexa, what more can you tell us about where things stand at the moment?
Yeah, George, well, there was a lot of meeting, a lot of back and forth over the last few weeks in hopes of trying to get some movement as yesterday's extension neared. And I can report that, we saw a report a few weeks ago on the league's proposals to the players. I actually have some updated numbers I'd like to share you all of where the league's latest proposal stands. Right now, they are offering a deal with a salary for players at the maximum with a $1 million guaranteed base, projected revenue sharing, pushing those total earnings for maximum players to more than $1.2 million. Sources have told me just now. The average salary projection under this deal, the average salary across the board is projected to exceed $500,000. The minimum salary would be projected to exceed $225,000, sources tell me. And the salary cap would actually increase to $5 million a year, and sources say would be directly tied to revenue growth each.
And pop champagne, but logic left the building a long time ago. The Players Association is planning to reject this offer, and when you hear why, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about professional sports negotiations. Here's where it gets absolutely ridiculous. According to multiple reports, the rejection is partially because players don't want to pay for their own housing anymore. I'm not joking. The league currently provides free apartments during the season, and under the new proposal, players would have to, act like adults and rent their own places. And apparently this is a deal breaker. Let me slow this down so everyone understands what's happening. Players making a minimum of $225,000 are saying they can't possibly afford to rent an apartment for 6 months. The average rent in most WNBA cities is around $3,000 a month. That's $18,000 for half a year. You're still walking away with over $200,000 after taxes and housing. But somehow this is considered an unreasonable burden? For players making the average salary of $500,000, housing costs are literally pocket change. We're talking about 3 to 4% of their annual income. The only people who might legitimately struggle with this are players on 10-day contracts bouncing between teams making minimal money. And you know what? The league could easily create an exception for those situations. Problem solved. But for established players with guaranteed contracts making 6 figures, demanding that billionaires continue providing free housing is so tone-deaf, it's actually impressive. The optics are catastrophic. Regular Americans making $40,000 or $50,000 a year are watching athletes earning 5 times that amount complain about paying rent, and the sympathy evaporates instantly. You want to know why people don't take the WNBA seriously? This is why. This exact attitude is why. Now, before you destroy me in the comments, there are legitimate issues with this proposal. The math doesn't actually add up. The WNBA is promising an average salary of $500,000.
That the WNBA came up with a 6-week extension until January the 6th for these negotiations. Now, they got a 48-hour window to where the players could say, you know what, We want to cancel out this extension. We want to go on strike.
According to reports, the rejection is partially
With a salary cap of $5 million per team for 12 players, if you do that calculation, you get $416,000, not $500,000. The salary cap would need to be $6 million to hit that average. So yeah, the players are right to call out the inconsistency. That's a real problem that needs clarification. The league claims the cap will increase over time tied directly to revenue growth, but they haven't disclosed the specific revenue sharing formula. Players want transparency on exactly how much of the league's revenue they're getting. They don't want vague promises that might disappear when it's convenient. That's completely fair. Any union worth anything should demand clarity on those details. But here's where they lose me, and they're going to lose most of the public too. The housing complaint makes them look entitled and completely disconnected from reality. NBA players don't get free housing, NFL players don't get free housing, NHL players don't get free housing. Why should WNBA players making comparable salaries to what NBA players made decades ago expect special treatment? The answer is they shouldn't, and fighting this battle publicly is a PR disaster. There's also the schedule issue, which is actually worth debating. The league wants to extend the season and start earlier, which could interfere with March Madness. This is problematic for multiple reasons. March Madness is essentially free marketing for the WNBA. It's where future stars build their brands before entering the league. Caitlin Clark became the biggest name in women's basketball during March Madness. Paige Buchers is building her profile through March Madness right now. Cutting into that tournament to start the WNBA season earlier is like shooting yourself in the foot and then complaining that walking hurts. The league's reasoning is they want to avoid competing with the NFL and college football for viewership. They want to capture sports fans when there's less competition. That makes some business sense, I guess. But sacrificing the free promotion that March Madness provides seems incredibly short-sighted. The real motivation for starting earlier, though, is to crush competing leagues like Unrivaled. Those leagues operate in the WNBA off-season, and the league wants to eliminate that option by extending their own season. Pure competitive strategy. Destroy your competition before they gain traction. But whether manipulating the schedule to accomplish that is worth the trade-offs remains unclear. Here's where it gets really dangerous. We're staring down the barrel of a potential lockout. If the players reject this offer and negotiations collapse, we could be looking at no WNBA season, 0 games, 0 revenue, 0 momentum. And the owners? They're billionaires with egos the size of small countries who really don't like being told no, especially when they think they're being generous. These owners have never turned a profit with the WNBA. They've been subsidizing the league out of their own pockets for years, essentially running a charity basketball league. They're finally seeing growth and momentum thanks largely to one player, and now the Players Association is rejecting what they consider an incredibly generous offer. Billionaires don't respond well to this kind of challenge. We've already seen reports that some owners think Commissioner Kathy Engelbert should be fired, but won't do it now because they don't want to look weak during negotiations. That's pure ego. That's billionaires refusing to be pushed around, and when egos get involved in labor disputes, things get ugly fast. A lockout right now would be absolutely catastrophic. The league just had its best year ever. Ratings exploded, attendance shattered records, sponsorship deals are pouring in, momentum is building for the first time in league history. A lockout destroys all of that overnight. Casual fans who just started paying attention move on to something else. Sponsors pull back. The entire infrastructure built over the past year crumbles into dust. And here's the brutal truth nobody wants to say out loud. The players have way less leverage than they think they do. The owners can afford to wait this out indefinitely. They're billionaires. Missing a season doesn't hurt them financially in any meaningful way. But the players? Missing a season means missing an entire year of income at a point in their careers when they might only have 5 or 6 good years total. The average WNBA career is short. Missing even one season is devastating. The players also seem to be operating under the assumption that the league needs them more than they need the league. That might have been true in the past, but Caitlin Clark fundamentally changed the equation. She's the one driving this growth. She's the one reason ratings and attendance exploded. She's the one who made the WNBA relevant to people who'd never watched a single game before. The Players Association needs to understand their leverage is not as strong as they think, especially if this dispute risks losing the star responsible for most of the recent growth. The math complaints are completely legitimate. If the league is promising an average salary of $500,000, but the cap doesn't support that calculation, they need to explain how that works. Revenue sharing details need to be crystal clear and transparent. Players absolutely deserve to know exactly what they're agreeing to. Those are reasonable demands that should be met. But fighting over housing when you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars? is not reasonable. Rejecting a deal that would transform player salaries because you don't want to pay your own rent is not reasonable. And risking a lockout that could destroy the league's momentum over these issues is definitely not reasonable. The Players Association is playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the chamber, and they don't seem to realize how much they have to lose. There's also the issue of competing leagues actively trying to poach talent. Other leagues are offering massive salaries to lure players away. If there's a lockout and players need somewhere to compete, those leagues become significantly more attractive. That could permanently fracture the talent pool and weaken the WNBA long term. The owners know this, and some of them might actually be willing to let a lockout happen just to establish dominance and send a message that players can't hold the league hostage. They're willing to sacrifice one season to win the long-term power struggle. The Players Association is betting everything that the owners will blink first, that the league has invested too much in this growth to risk losing it all, that public pressure will force ownership to cave to player demands. But that's a terrible bet. Billionaires don't operate on logic when their egos are bruised. They operate on pride and spite. And right now, the owners probably feel like they made an incredibly generous offer that's being thrown back in their faces. The irony is both sides actually want the same thing, a thriving league that generates more revenue so everyone makes more money. But they can't agree on how to get there or how to split the pie. The owners want more control and flexibility. The players want guarantees and transparency. Those aren't necessarily incompatible goals, but they require compromise. And right now, neither side seems willing to give even an inch. The housing issue is particularly maddening because it's such an easy fix. Create a housing stipend for players on temporary contracts who genuinely need assistance. But for players making 6 figures, they can figure it out like every other professional athlete in every other sport. This isn't complicated. The schedule manipulation is more nuanced. There are legitimate business reasons for wanting more control over when the season happens. But there are also valid concerns about sacrificing free marketing and player development. That's a negotiation worth having in good faith. But ultimately, this comes down to one critical question. Are the players willing to risk everything they've gained over the past year for incremental improvements to an already historic offer? Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're gambling the entire momentum of the league on the belief that owners will cave rather than watch everything fall apart. And based on how billionaires typically operate in labor disputes, that's probably a losing bet. The WNBA was finally becoming relevant, finally gaining traction with mainstream audiences, finally building something sustainable. And now they're about to blow it all up over rent money and vague projections. If this lockout happens and the season gets canceled, the damage might be irreversible. Those casual fans who showed up for Caitlin Clark aren't coming back after a labor dispute.